Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive today into something lots of people are talking about, intermittent fasting.
Right.
We've got a couple of sources here. A scientific review looking at, the physiology, what happens in the body, and also a beginner's guide that's more about the practical side.
Yeah, the basics and how to, sort of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So our mission is to, cut through some of the noise, figure out what intermittent fasting actually is, understand the pretty fascinating stuff happening inside your body, and pull out what these sources say about the potential upsides and, importantly, the things to watch out for.
Sounds good. And intermittent fasting, or IF, it's interesting because, as both sources stress, it's not really focused on what you eat, like a traditional diet.
It's different.
It's fundamentally about when you eat. You're cycling between periods of eating and periods of voluntary fasting, usually 12 hours or more for the fasting part.
So it's not just like skipping breakfast on a whim. It's got a structure to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a pattern. And the sources mention a few common approaches. You've got the 168 method that's pretty popular.
16 hours fasting, 8 eating.
That's the one. Then there's the 5.2 diet, 5 normal eating days, 2 days with really restricted calories.
Okay.
And also things like alternate day fasting, ADF, which might mean a full fast or just very low calories every other day. Different ways to achieve that cycle.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me, this core idea of the metabolic switch. What's going on there?
Yes, this is central. So after roughly 10, maybe 12 hours without food, your body kind of runs through its readily available sugar stores.
The glycogen.
Exactly, the glycogen, mostly in the liver. Once that's depleted, it does this flip. It switches from using glucose, sugar, as its main fuel, to mobilizing fat. It starts breaking down fats into fatty acids and producing these things called ketones.
Ketones, I've heard of those, like beta-hydroxybutyrate. Is that one?
That's the major one, yeah, OHB. And what's really remarkable, and the scientific review digs into this, is that these ketones can actually become a preferred fuel source, even for the brain.
Wow, okay.
So it's this shift from sugar burning and storage to fat burning and ketone production that seems key to many of IF effects. The review even mentions specific proteins, sirtuins, playing a role in regulating that switch in the liver.
Okay, so you're essentially forcing your body to tap into fat stores by, taking away the constant sugar supply. What potential benefits do the sources link to this state?
Well, quite a few actually. Weight and body composition is a big one. Both sources point to potential for weight loss and fat loss.
Makes sense if you're burning fat.
Right. And the scientific review notes that some methods, like that alternate day modified fasting, showed pretty consistent fat loss in trials. But interestingly, something like time-restricted feeding, the 168, that often seems better at helping people hold on to lean muscle mass compared to just cutting calories all the time.
Keeping muscle while losing fat, that's definitely a big plus for many people. What about metabolic health, like blood sugar and stuff?
Yeah, significant potential there too, often linked to the weight loss, sure, but maybe some independent effects as well. We're talking improved insulin sensitivity.
Which is huge for type 2 diabetes risk.
Huge. And potentially better cholesterol numbers total, LDL, lower triglycerides, even improvements in blood pressure. The review is pretty clear it could be beneficial for people in that prediabetes stage.
And it goes deeper than just blood markers, right?
Yeah.
There were mentions of cellular effects.
Yes, exactly. Things like lower insulin levels, which we mentioned, but also potentially increased human growth hormone. And it seems to kickstart cellular cleanup processes. Like autophagy. It's where cells basically clear out old, damaged parts. Think of it like cellular recycling, keeping things running efficiently. Plus, potential changes in gene expression linked to longevity pathways with those sirtuins involved again.
And the brain. I remember seeing something about brain health potential, at least in animals.
Yes, the animal studies mentioned in the review are quite intriguing. They suggest possible cognitive benefits, things like learning and memory improvements, and even neuroprotection, so making brain cells more resistant to stress or damage in models that mimic conditions like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's.
And that might be linked to, ketones again?
Potentially, yeah. Maybe the brain using ketones efficiently, or perhaps increases in factors like BDNF, that's brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is really important for neuron health.
Okay, this all sounds quite promising, but we need to pump the brakes a bit. What are the important cautions, the warnings, the sources highlight?
Absolutely crucial point. Common side effects, especially when starting, are things like hunger, obviously, maybe some temporary weakness or that brain fog feeling as your body adapts.
Right, the adjustment period.
Exactly. And while, historically very long fasts carried serious risks, the kinds of shorter, regular IF patterns studied generally seem to have minimal major issues reported in the research.
But it's definitely not for everyone. You can't just tell anyone to start this.
Absolutely not. The beginner's guide is really clear on this. People who need to be cautious or maybe avoid IF altogether include those with diabetes, especially type 1, or other blood sugar issues.
Okay.
Anyone with low blood pressure, people on certain medications, definitely need to talk to a doctor. They're individuals who are underweight or have a history of eating disorders.
Makes sense.
And also, those who are pregnant or breastfeeding, definitely not recommended then.
Was there also a specific note about women?
Yes, there was. The beginner's guide mentions some evidence suggesting IF could potentially disrupt hormones or menstrual cycles in some females. It stressed that more research is really needed here.
So caution advised.
Definitely caution. And really, the advice is for anyone considering IF, especially if you have any underlying health condition, to talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian first. It's just smart.
Right. Good advice. So finally, what about actually sticking with it? Feasibility, sustainability. Is it practical long term?
That's a really important question. Both sources do acknowledge that sticking to it can be challenging for some people. It requires a change in habits, maybe social adjustments.
Yeah, dinner invitations get tricky maybe.
Could be. The beginner's guide really emphasizes finding an approach that fits your life, listening to your body. It doesn't have to be super rigid. The scientific review even floated the idea that maybe monitoring ketone levels could help some people stay motivated, seeing that switch happen.
Interesting. Okay, so wrapping this up, it looks like intermittent fasting, by deliberately triggering that metabolic switch moving from sugar to fat and ketones, shows, well, real promise according to these sources, for weight, metabolic health markers, maybe even cellular stuff and brain function down the line.
Yeah, the potential seems there.
But clearly not a magic wand. Requires careful thought, isn't right for everyone, and needs that medical consult for many. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you, the listener. Is focusing on when you eat, specifically aiming to hit that metabolic switch, possibly a more powerful lever for certain health goals than just focusing on what you eat? Something to consider on your own health journey.